We have with us today one of the infamous Chapman brothers. We've got Blane here, who's going to help me put shoes on bucket head. So I've never shod a horse. I did get some lessons once from his brother Bryce. You may have seen that video, how to shoe a horse. Did really well.
The crimper.
Yeah, that's where we established that it's crimping.
The infamous crimper. It's a widely known term now that it's crimping.
It's no longer clinching, it's crimping. These are both pops.
I remember both of them.
So this little slit in the hoof stand's my favorite part.
Oh yeah.
To me, that's I don't know, pretty ingenious.
Yeah, it's a pretty good idea there. All right, what are we gonna do? We don't have any shoes on him, so we're just gonna have to. So, whoa, bucket head, whoa, bucket. First, you have to tell him whoa, whoa, so they stand still. If you tell them whoa, they stand still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And since it's been raining at Radiator Ranch, whoa, bucket head. It's been raining at Radiator Ranch. Got a little bit of mud on the scene. So part of shoeing a horse is knowing how much to take off or how much to leave on. So really, if you look at it, sometimes we think just because we're called out to shoe the horse that we got to cut something off, But if you look at it, this horse's foot is in pretty good shape. And how I know that is, this is called the solar white line interface right here, where the sole of the foot meets the wall of the foot, okay? So where this meets, that's pretty much the bottom of his foot. You don't want to really get down any lower than that. And it's kind of slick right here. Of course, it's hard to tell really because it's a little bit dirty still, but you really don't want to over trim that. So with that, I'll kind of use my knife, clean out the solar white line interface, the edge of his foot. When I kind of get down to where it starts to tie in together and all the dirt's gone, I know that that's pretty much, it's about as deep as I want to cut him, because I've still got to drive a nail and shape a shoe to his foot. So there's three parts. This is the frog. These are the bars. This is the wall. This is the sole of his foot. And we do a deal what we call mapping the foot out. It kind of tells you, you can find the internal structures of the foot by certain things on the outside of his foot. So where the bars terminate into the sole, where these end right here and stop, that's generally the widest part of his foot, or the bridge of his foot. So if you find that, you know where the widest part of the bridge of his foot is. From there, there's been a bunch of research done, and from the center of that 1 inch forward is a pretty good indication of where the true tip of his frog is. And if you were to drill a hole perpendicular right through that, it would come out right at the top of his foot. And so we know where his bone is in the inside of that. If you go 1 3/4 inches forward of that, that's where the distal end or the tip of the coffin bone would be inside the foot. And then anything forward of that gives you how much distortion or how his foot's overgrown. This horse's foot's in pretty good shape. We want to use the back of his foot and we want to level this up just a little bit. So we could trim it with our nippers, but once we trim it, if we don't get it flat, and then we have to rasp it flat, then we may get him way too short. So I just want to knock the edges off here. And I want to trim his foot back to about the widest point of his upright frog that he's got. So I don't want to trim much further back down than the top of his frog. And I'm going to come right in here.
How do you hold the rasp? Like, is there a direction you need to go?
Well, if you're going to find
as far as just rasping.
Just rasping. The main thing is want to hold it really flat. It's easy to, when you push on this rasp, it's easy to push down on the leading edge and grind into the quarter, which will make it dipped out and it won't be flat. So you really want to keep it flat as you can and just push across. And I'll usually try to stay from there's a quarter here. This is your heel quarter. And right here at the widest point of his toe is your toe quarter. So I want to stay in front of the quarter of his foot, this part. I want to stay in front of it and behind it so I don't get them dipped out and make it half moon shaped. He's already kind of got them busted out anyway, because that's always the weakest part of his foot is the quarter. So I want to get it as flat as possibly can, and then hem it up. And now it's this foot. There's a lot more stuff you could do to it, but it's not really necessary. So now this foot's ready for a shoe. And the way that I know that this foot is kind of in balance, if you will, or together, if you go down through the center of this frog, you got 2 equal halves, okay? If you go from the toe quarter across to the heel, it's going to bisect. It's going to cross right here in the center of his foot. You go over here, it's going to cross right there. You go over here, it's going to cross in the center of his foot. So, and then if you go from the toe quarter back to the heel, you can put his foot in a pie. So in other words, if you put the horse's foot in a box, if this is a true box and this is a horse's foot, here's this frog. The widest point of his foot, toe quarter to heel, toe quarter to heel, toe quarter to heel, toe quarter to heel. You can split that foot up in those quadrants, and that's going to give you a pretty good indication of how balanced and well put together you have his foot. Now then, it's ready for a shoe. You can also take his foot and they found that there's about 5 different foot shapes, and you're going to find one of those 5 foot shapes almost always on a horse, the front, the back, and so if you kind of can identify those 5 foot shapes, then it kind of gives you a better indication on how you shape your shoe.
I don't know if you remember, but whenever we got back from Arizona, he had a pretty big line at the top of his hoof.
Right.
I sent you a picture of it.
Was it that foot maybe?
It was both.
Yeah,
But
I do remember.
Now it's in the middle of his hoof.
Mm-hmm.
And you told me it would grow out and go down. But
yeah, it started out up here and then it's grown down to here.
yes, sir.
And that could be, those things like that could be a lot of different things. It could be, he could have hit his coronary band and damaged the blood supply there, like a bruise, like you bruise your hand or something, or you mash your fingernail, and it stops the blood supply for just a short term from a bruise or whatever, and so it starts to grow out, or change of feed, but you can see it right there where he had that old, but it's grown down that far.
Yeah, it was like right up against the...
Right, and there's a lot of people that they worry about rasping on the front of the foot, but if you look at this horse's foot, it comes down to here and then it starts to displace. It starts to spread out. A horse's foot doesn't grow down; it grows forward. So, and if that was the case, if a horse's foot grew down, the longer he got and the longer he got, the taller he would get. So as a horse bears weight upon his foot, most of his foot is in front of him. So, behind him. So when he stands down, as his foot grows down, there's no possible way with pressure on his heel of his foot that his heel can push him up and spread out and keep him stood up, if you will. So the more length he gets on his foot, the heels start to fold and run under and run forward. That's why his toes gets real long. And so that's why horses' toes get really long, because they don't necessarily grow down, they grow forward. And so this is forward direction of the foot growing. And so I'll kind of take my rasp and I'll clean that up. So I'll make this side where it kind of flows from the coronary band all the way down. As you get around here, you can start to see a space between my rasp and his hoof right there. So I'll go ahead and clean that bottom edge up. So, and also if I put a shoe on it, when I drive my nails, if I want my nails to come up a little higher, they're going to come out here because that's the path of least resistance. So it's going to be hard to bypass that if you want to drive your nails any higher. So I'll just clean the bottom edge of his foot up, and it makes it look nice too.
One time I can't remember which horse it was. It might have been my gray horse that has not the best feet, but I was texting Bryce and I was needing to trim him, but I didn't know exactly what to do or how to do it. And he basically said, just take it off the front, don't cut on the bottom, and you'll be fine.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that a lot of times we think if we're shoeing a horse that we have to, since somebody's paying us to do it and they send us out there to do it, that you got to trim something off the bottom, because that's what we do. We cut stuff off, right? But a lot of these horses, they don't actually necessarily need anything from the bottom. They need that. If you got to think about, he's got to walk on his foot. So if he's only got a half an inch of foot to keep his foot up off the ground, keep his sole up off the ground, and you take all that away, now he's standing on the sole of his foot. It'd be like you taking your boots off and walking across the rocks barefooted. And so a lot of times they'll be busted up on the outside, and you can just take your rasp and hem that up and clean it up and just round those edges up so they don't break up, and then he'll still have something to stand on. So you think about shoeing a horse. When you shoe him, you trim the foot off, and then you add 5/16 or 3/8 of an inch of steel back to the bottom of his foot, so you raise his foot back up off the ground after you've trimmed him. So that's why those horses get along better shod, a lot of them, because you add that back, that depth back, and so then they can handle the rocks and the pressure and whatever else from the ground. So a lot of times they're better off. They're fine barefooted if we don't over trim them. So, it's kind of like trimming your fingernails too short. Same difference. They just have to walk on theirs. We've got the St. Croix Sure Fit from Mustad. So this is American-made horseshoe. St. Croix.
American-made horseshoes.
Yeah. So I do stuff for Mustad company. Mustad hoof care. They call it I think they call it a Mustad Pro Staffer. But anyway, so I'm a Mustad Pro Staffer, and we do all kinds of, we do a lot of field studies and stuff, and use their tools and use their products to try to help promote great products that Mustad makes. They're one of the leading manufacturers in fastening devices, and a horseshoe is a fastening device. So what I'll do is I'll look at his foot, and if you have to fit the toe. If you ever miss the toe, the rest of it doesn't go very well. So let's just say, for instance, if I have a shoe that's too small, let's just say, okay, I'm trying to figure this out. So I'll take this horseshoe. Of course, I need to get my wire brush, and I put this horseshoe down, and it looks like it covers, okay? It looks like it fits the toe. Man, that'll work. But it doesn't fit right here, and it doesn't fit right here. So I go over to my anvil, and once I open this shoe up and spread it out, how about this, for old time's sake, let's use old Coker's anvil here. How about that? The old Stahljack. So let's just say I take it over here and I'll spread it out to get it to fit. This is called cold banging, because you're hitting it cold. You're not putting it in the fire and heating it up. So we're cold banging here at Radiator Ranch today. So let's just say I open it up, because I've got to get outside those edges to make it fit. Well, when I open it up, it opens it up this way, but it shortens it from the front to the back. Hey, hand me that wire brush, please. Probably should have started with the wire brush so people could actually see what we were doing. That's a good way to hide, so you don't, people that really know what they're doing. So anyway, so now I open it up, now it doesn't fit back here. And I'm like, oh shoot. So I go over here to my anvil, and I do what I can. I try to stretch it out. I got to try to force it to fit. So I'm beating it up. I'm forcing it to fit. I go back and I'll struggle around here, and it takes me an hour just to get a shoe to fit, because it's the wrong size. So if you ever get in that, now I could nail it on. If you're in Arizona and that's all you had, you could nail this shoe on and get by. But it actually doesn't fit because it doesn't cover the heels. Kind of covers this side. You could get this side to cover, but then you can't get that side to cover, so you're always switching. So if you're ever in a situation when you're not in Arizona and you just have to get something on, go to the next size up and see how that's going to work for you.
What size is that?
This is a 0, and this is a 1. And so I'm going to look at it, and it's going to cover up the heels a little bit. It'd be like putting a shoe on that was not long enough for you. Stick your foot in it, smash it down. But anyway, so now I'm going to feel back here. One thing that I do a lot to see if my fit's right, I'll hold my shoe here and I'll roll it forward. And then I'll look down the front. And I'll see if it fits. I want my horse's foot sitting on top of the shoe. I don't want my shoe under the foot, because I don't want his foot bound up. So he's broke off right there, so that's where his foot should be. That's a pretty good fit right there, I would say, even for a cold banger. And so on here on the inside, it's a little full. And so I'm going to take it back over to my anvil, and I'm going to tighten up this edge. So the whole point is to get it to fit. The whole point is to get the shoe to fit around. It's like taking a piece of wire and wrapping it around something. You want it to fit around the perimeter of his foot. Man, what a cool anvil, man. This thing works great. Awesome. So we're just going to do a little more cold banging. And the reason I'm looking at it like that is because we want it flat, because we did trim his foot flat. I mean, you know, who wouldn't trim his foot flat, right?
Yeah.
So, whoa, over there. All right, so now we're going to trim his foot. Here at Radiator Ranch, we do things in the dirt. So that's why it's so nice, and we love it like this. Old school in it, baby. So now it fits everywhere, but right here it's a little bit full. I want to tighten that up so he doesn't reach up with the back foot and jerk his shoe off. And over here it's a little bit full. So we're going to tighten up the heels a little bit.
Ah.
And the way we tighten up the heels is we come right in here. And you do that in little increments so you keep the radius in your shoe. You don't want to just whack it down there. And so we'll keep the radius in our shoe. Tap it in just a little bit. Man, my horseshoeing buddies are gonna love this cold banging. They're gonna. This is cold banging at its finest at Radiator Ranch.
How often do you hit them up?
Well, I mean, you have to heat them up every day. I mean, that's the only way to do it. Now, heating shoes. I mean, using the forge. We use it at Forge a lot if we're pulling a clip to help a shoe stay on more. You'll actually draw the material out of the shoe and pull a clip to help keep the shear force off the nail. It helps hold the shoe on a little bit better, especially this time of year. Horses are stomping flies and stuff like that, and so we'll heat a shoe up to do that. If you're building a shoe from scratch, you're building a specialty shoe, then you'll throw it in the forge, heat it up, because, and especially on or like a sliding plate or something that's a little bit thicker, that's not quite as easy to shape. We'll use the forge because we can heat it up, and it makes the metal just a lot easier to bend. But the shoes that most of us use, most of these what we call keg shoes, or the shoes that come in a box, they're relatively soft, and they're 5/16 by 3/4 most of them. So they're pretty easy to bend with not a lot of effort. And a lot of these shoes, they have front shapes and hind shapes in them already. So there's not a whole lot it doesn't take a whole lot to get them to fit. I mean, it probably took longer to get this one to fit because we're explaining it and messing with it, but it usually doesn't take that long to fit. And so once you get your shoe fit like you want it, you have your nail, and the nail's got a stamp on the inside. It's flat on the back. It's got that stamp. This always goes toward the inside of the foot because the nail's got a bevel part on it. And when you drive the nail in, the bevel part at the tip drives the nail out the side of the foot. So there is a method to the madness there.
Smooth side to the outside.
Smooth to the outside. So anyway, whenever you set your nails in, you want to just angle them up the same angle as the wall. A lot of times, you can get in a little bit of trouble for driving nails in the heel, but these ranch horses, they need it because they need the extra help. I'm not afraid to drive a heel nail. Once you get them on there, then you say, okay, Dale, you're up. You drive the other ones. The thing about a horse's hoof wall is, if you look at a horse's wall, it comes, say this is his coronary band, the top of his foot, and here's his hoof wall. It starts out here at the cuticle like you're in my fingernail, and it comes down about a half an inch, and it comes at an angle like that. That's called the coronary groove. That's where all the blood supply comes to the wall. Then the wall is the same thickness from there all the way down. So realistically, if you drove a nail here and you could drive it all the way up just to the base of that coronary groove if you kept it in his wall and not be in trouble. That's not ideal. However, that's how thick his hoof wall is. And so make sure, yep, there you go. Now drive it. There it goes. There it come out. Just take there you go.
Will you know if you drove a hot nail?
Generally, yes. Because generally the horse is going to tell you pretty quick. There's a fine line between between the hoof wall and the laminar region.
How many
where
nails do you drive in here?
I use all the holes, every hole I can.
Really?
Usually you can get by with 6, but you know, if I kind of use the rule of thumb of when I look at their foot, if I can tell what their wall's like, if I
So I just try to hold it straight up and down?
yeah, just kind of, so if you want it to come out right there, just kind of point your nail in that direction, just kind of like, and keep it right in the center, and then just kind of keep it perpendicular to the wall there, and just trying to drive it right up, tip it to the outside just a hair more. That's all right, go ahead and drive it.
Tip it to the outside?
Yeah, like when you put it in, when you put it in the, stick it in the bottom of the hole, and I kind of stick it toward the inside, and then as you, then just tip your nail this way until you get it to go in the angle that you want. It's designed to come out, so it's designed to come out. So in other words, if the wall is at this angle and you're driving the nail in here, if you tip the nail toward the inside of the foot, it's going to come out more shallow. If you tip the nail more toward the outside, as it comes in the wall, it's going to drive itself out higher. So in other words, if you stick this nail in the wall in here, if you point it, if you tip the top of the nail toward the inside of the foot, it's going to come out more shallow.
Right, right.
If you tip it this way, it's going to go out deeper. So you want to try to keep it at the same angle as the wall. So whatever the angle your hoof wall is, you want to kind of try to position your nail that way too.
Parallel to the wall?
About where your finger is where you want it to come out.
Okay.
Yeah, parallel to the wall. Now then, when you drive it, go ahead.
Yep,
you got it. It's
right
coming.
there.
Yep. So the angle your nail comes out depends on how perpendicular to the wall you are. If you get it right there and you can't wring it off, just bend it up the side.
Up.
That's fine. You got it right there. Perfect. Now you're an official ringer, nail ringer.
Does hitting it soft make your nail climb, and then hitting it hard punch it through, or what?
I don't think so. I hit it soft to kind of get it started and getting it to the solid part of the foot, and then I go ahead and drive it. Once you get it going the right direction, there's some people that say it does. I'm not sure that it makes a lot of difference. I think it makes the difference the angle that you put it in. Angle it to, see here you kind of angle it just to me, just to take it out. There you go. Now when you put it in, now angle it this way just a little bit. Now then drive it. That way it's going right up the wall. There it goes. A guy one time said, you learn to shoe horses by the sound of driving nails. All right. And the key is to get them all the same. But the cool thing about it is, what is it, June? Fixing to be your birthday. Summertime, we like summertime. So these are summer nails, you know, summer high, summer low. And so, you know, and like right here, it's kind of busted out. And, you know, we might.
This one's way low.
Oh, yeah. But hey, we got them in. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. We can take them out and get them straight, but, well, I think that's pretty good. Now then, this is the best part, crimping.
We're going to start over. It is no longer called clinching. The word now, to all you horseshoers out there in the world, is crimping.
Now's the crimping part. There's 5 steps to crimping. The first step is just cut the nail. Well, really, the first step generally is to bend them to a 90. That's the meat and potatoes of your crimp. Okay, cut them off.
Is that just an old set of nippers, or is that a special?
That's a special set of nail nippers to do that. Let's clean this piece. When you drive a nail in and crimp it up and cut it off, it pushes a little piece of hoof underneath your nail. So we want a place for that nail to lay down and set flush against the foot. So we use our rasp, or we can use what they call a nail gouge. You can take this is just a half round knife, a loop knife. Or you can come in there and you can cut out a little spot like that. And then when you go to crimping, step 4, open your crimpers. This is not a prying tool. You'll see a lot of guys that'll go, and you'll have a big old nasty crimp. So now then, and you'll see how that one lays down in there where I got it out with my knife. That's called gouging the nail. You gouge that spot out. Then you just open them up, close them. It's open and close. That's all you do with that tool. Open it and close it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then step 5 is to take your rasp and clean up your crimp, your that's called the finish. You're finishing the foot. You want everything to kind of blend in. Keep your rasp flat. You don't want to get to hogging it off right there and dubbing the toe off, getting the toe. You want the horse's foot to stay at the same angle. And then just clean it up. There's all kinds of different things you can do to make them
How
really.
much of an issue is this gap against the, what would that?
Really, that's not really that big a deal. So this horse's foot is kind of been broken off right here. So it has a void in it because of that was broke off. So if it wasn't broke off, his foot would be there. And so I'm just letting this shoe flow around where his foot should be. That's where it's going to be. And then I'll bring it back around and tighten it up in the back and let it fit all the way around. That way, when his foot does grow out and come back, if I was to try to make this real tight and fit, I could put it on my grinder and clean that up if I was worried about it, but it's on the outside. So he's probably not going to step on it right here in this quarter. So I'm okay about leaving that. You can put filler in there. We make great products that are hoof acrylics that go in there, and you can fill that up and if you're worried about it, but it'll probably be fine.
What are some things that could lead to this shoe coming off early?
Well, probably the fact that I put it on is probably the first thing.
That's issue number 1.
Issue number 1. A lot of times it's muddy right now. It's really muddy, and we're going. The biggest thing is it probably not being tight enough in the heel where it fits tight enough in the heel. That's probably the biggest issue that you'll have. They'll reach up and they'll catch it with the back foot. However, most of the time, if you got their foot in the right spot and you've got the shoe in the right place and their foot is what we call in balance or in the right parameters, you're not going to usually have that much trouble because the shoe is just an extension of his foot, and it's a protection device is all it is. The shoe's first and foremost function is protection. So if we don't fit it right, we leave it too long or we leave it too wide, they can reach up and they can grab it and jerk it off, or they can hang it in the fence pawing. So as long as it fits right and it's in the proper parameters, they're usually going to wear them pretty well. And they stay on pretty good. You don't really have to use that many nails. There's sometimes I shoe some of my rope horses that we use all the time, and I just put 4 nails in. I'll put 2 at the front and 2 at the front, 2 at the back. And that's it. And so it just it's all different. And you front feet and back feet, there's a lot of things you can do if you have a horse that's habitually pulling shoes off, that has trouble, that's stepping on himself. There's ways that you can change the front feet or the back feet in order to stop that from happening. But that'll be episode 2.
That'd be episode 3.
Yeah, and another thing about getting around horses, even though buckethead's pretty gentle, I think a person has to always be aware that a horse is still a fight or flight animal. He can, like Ray Hunt said one time, he can feel a fly land on him right here and not even see him. So I'm always try to be fair to my horse and let him know I'm coming, where I'm coming. And picking up back feet, you'll see a lot of guys reach down here and pick up a back foot like this where they're real close. Well, a horse, I'm still real vulnerable right here because he can reach up with his back foot and scratch himself right there on the elbow. So if I'm right here and I reach and pick up his foot and he's not ready for it, or if he tries to kick out, he can still kick me in the leg or whatever. And we don't want that to happen. And I don't want to surprise him either. So for me personally, the way we teach all our interns and all our guys coming in, we always teach them to face the back. And I've got all this room. If I touch him here and he's sensitive and he kicks, he's probably not going to kick this way. He's probably going to just kick straight out. So if I'm here and he does it and he kicks straight out, I have an opportunity for him to kick me there. So for us, the way we teach everybody and the way we all learn, pick his back foot up like that. Let him know you're coming. You can feel him. He's relaxed. I can feel that he's not trying to get away. I'll slide up here. I'll grab the toe of his foot. Now, if he decides to kick, it's kind of like a wrist lock when you're doing jiu-jitsu or an armbar. You can take that foot if he kicks, and you can just stand up with it and shove it right back up straight, and it's kind of like an ankle lock. And he can still kick you, but you got a lot more control over him right there. So the first thing we do, we'll get a hold of his toe. If he kicks a little bit, then he'll relax, and then we step up under him. And if you notice, I'm facing kind of at an angle away from him. If I'm like this, I'm always fighting to get to his foot. So I'll kind of do it at an angle like this. My foot here is actually replacing his hind foot when it's standing on the ground. So if you look where my left foot is, when he puts his foot down, that's where my left foot was. So my left side of my body, my left foot's basically replacing his left hind foot.
Nice.
And so that gives him stability. He's got three other feet to stand on. Now I'm kind of facing across. Now I can take my knife or my hoof pick or whatever. I can clean his foot out. I've kind of got a table. You've got my knee here and the fat part of my thigh right here. Mine doesn't have fat, it's muscle, straight muscle.
Right, of course.
You know, it's because of mountain. I'll tell you, I take that mountain
Because of that
supplement.
mountain.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but anyway, so I can clean it off, and his foot stays right there. And it rests kind of on the inner thigh right here. And I've got my base wide of my feet, and I can clean his foot out. And as soon as I clean his foot out, I can start seeing the depth, and you can see the depth of his foot, how much sole depth he has, this part, by cleaning out the commissures or the
Why do you switch knives?
well, because this one's really, really dull, and I use it to knock all the dirt out with, and this
Gotcha.
is really, really sharp. This is a Todd Walker knife. If you ever need a knife, Todd Walker. He's one of our Mustad guys, so I have to say that so he'll keep sending me stuff for free, you know. So anyway, so I use that, and if you'll look, the stuff that's flaking out, or what we call exfoliating sole, it's pretty much already exfoliated. This horse's foot's in good shape. It's not too long or too short, but you can see this is kind of waxy.
Yes,
When you
sir.
get there, that's a good stopping spot. And when you clean this out, he doesn't have a big depth right in here in his commissures of his frog, so I don't want to over trim that. So for me, and if I'm questioning whether I know how much to trim off or not, and one thing that you can do that's kind of a good rule of thumb, you can measure to figure out how short to trim him. You can measure the length of his frog. So from here to here should equal from the coronary band to here. So this and this, that's a pretty good rule of thumb of how short you want him. And that's a really safe.
But where'd you start?
The widest point of his frog, the back of his frog, measure from here to here. Then if you take that measurement and you measure from the coronary band to there, those two are pretty close, so this foot's probably about as short as you ought to be able to get it. And then from there, if that should equal, this length should equal this length. And so if you go from there to there, it should equal from there to the widest point of his foot, from the tip of his frog to the back of his foot. So this should equal this, should equal this.
Dang. Kind of like
Geometry.
heart growth to the ground and heart growth to the withers.
Right. There's a certain parameter that all feet can be put in. And you can if you can learn those parameters, you can tell where a foot needs to be, and you can put it in the right spot. And so me, when I look at that, I can tell he doesn't really need a lot of foot trimmed off. So to be safe, and to be, especially if I needed him in the Arizona desert with Derek Begay, I would probably leave a little foot on him. So if you do lose a shoe, he's not just three-legged. So all I'm doing is flattening the surface out, getting a good spot to put a shoe on. I'm going to leave a little depth. I'm going to kind of clean this, what we'd call sole pressure, where his sole is a little bit lower than the wall. And now I'm going to look at his foot, and I'm going to go get me a shoe. And I want to leave the bars upright. The bars are a strength structure in the foot. This part, these are called the bars. So I don't want to just gut those out. I want to leave those kind of upright and solid and straighten them up. And this is a hind foot pattern. You can tell because it's kind of more pointed, kind of kind of more of a arrowhead shape.
So it's got its own shoe?
Yeah, that's the thing about, we build these shoes that have front and hind patterns. So you have lots of different patterns. You have what we call a compromise pattern, which is kind of a front shoe shape. Then you have a pre-shape, like this one's a front and this one's a hind, and you can tell the difference because the front is real bold, the toe's bold, big and round, and the back is more pointy like a back foot. This is your driving area. This is what drives, and then this is what places and puts his feet in the right spot so he can tell you where to go.
That's why it's more pointed.
The good Lord has put them like that. So now, if I got this shoe, it doesn't really fit because this foot's a little bit wider. So all I've got to do here, though, is open this toe up a little bit. And as long as the toe fits, if you can get the toe to go around, then everything else follows suit. If you don't fit the toe, the rest of it is pretty difficult. So what I'm going to do here, I know I've actually got the shape of his foot here. The toe's just a little narrow. So I'm going to open the toe up. Here's to all you cold bangers out there, baby. We love you guys.
So are there guys that, why do you keep addressing that? Are there guys that just cold bang? Is that like a stereotype?
The cool thing about horseshoeing is, man, you got the world championship blacksmiths, okay? The guy that you met, Craig Turnka, and his son Bodie, like those guys they're the elite. Like those guys they can take that pipe fence, cut a piece out of it, and build a horseshoe that looked like it was made in the factory. I mean, they're that good. Yeah. And they have a deal where you go to these horseshoeing competitions. So they build horseshoes from scratch. They've got to meet a certain criteria. And then the guys that are the top end of those and the building the shoes, they get to go into the shoeing competition the next day. And so those guys do everything hot. They don't really, and a lot of them do everything from scratch. So they do everything with a straight piece of steel that doesn't have any holes in it or anything. And they forge it all out and hammer it into a shoe. And it looks perfect. And so those are kind of guys that we kind of have their hot shoers or whatever. And then the cold bangers are guys that they buy shoes from Mustad, St. Croix, and they pull them out of a box. They come in a box. They shape them up on the anvil. Some of them do it hot. Some of them do it cold. But they're easy to shape without heating them up. And it's a lot quicker in a lot of instances, and you can accomplish the same goal. And so in the industry, there's a lot of funny push, poking at each other. Oh, he's a cold banger. He's a cowboy shoer. He's a hot shoer, and he's just a competition guy. But all of us have our place, and all of us at the end of the day shoe horses. And there's a lot of guys that are really, really, really good at both. And so that's why I bring that up. The guys that are horseshoers, they'll get it. And but that's why I bring that up, because I'm not heating this shoe up. It's soft enough and it's durable enough. I can still shape it without
so if we had more time.
Yeah, it does. It takes more time. And then in the summer, it's 100 degrees and humidity, and then it's hot, and you got the forge going, and so there's a lot of benefits. There's benefits to both. At the end of the day, it's knowing how to do it properly, whether it's cold or hot. It doesn't matter how you shape it. If you get it shaped properly, for the proper thing, for the proper horse, proper reason, they all benefit. And so when I'm shaping this shoe, I'm looking at what we were talking about earlier about my parameters. I'm looking at my shoe and see if it fits the guideline. If this toenail lines up to this heel, this toenail lines up to this heel, the center of my shoe. If I've got a balanced shoe on both sides, so I'm just going to kind of shape it up. Level it up, flatten it up. Go over here and nail it on. Nothing to it but to do it. Same deal. I always am mindful of my horse's instincts, how he's going to react. Then I check my fit, see if it's, I'll be dang, it fit. Now I take my nail, when I stick it in the nail hole, I tip it to the outside so it's perpendicular to my wall. I get it started.
Parallel with it?
Yeah, parallel, I mean, I said perpendicular. I went to A&M, I mean, come on. So now then I got it out. Same deal. Then, and I always go to the other side so I can kind of keep my shoe in the spot that I want it. You can, there's a lot of different kind of nails too. I just didn't bring a whole bunch of extra different kinds, but this is a 5 slim blade Capewell.
What's the small hit on your hammer hitting between each big one? Just get yourself back.
Just kind of in a cadence, you know, and little, like right there, I'm just tapping it, and I feel it get in his wall. I feel it get in his wall, and then this just to kind of get me, I just kind of do that to kind of get myself in a rhythm. Because I want to make sure I don't hit it and bend it. I just kind of do that. It's just kind of a rhythm thing that you get into.
Why'd you skip a hole on that side?
Because I hadn't put a nail in it yet. I'm going to put a nail in it actually, but I just kind of, I do that sometimes to keep my shoe in the right position that I want it. I don't want it sliding around. So I'll put my nail in there. When I feel it kind of get into the part of the wall, and then I'll kind of just, I do that, tap the shoe, I guess, just to get my cadence started in the way I'm going to drive my nail. I had to really learn how to redo this stuff when I cut my thumb off.
Oh, I bet. It threw off all your rhythm.
Well, just how I held my hammer, I would lose my hammer, it'd flip in my hand. But I called my good friend Doug Russo. He's a really high-end horseshoe blacksmith, and he had the same kind of situation I did. And him and Paul Gutierrez, they both shoe horses, and they both rope, and they both lost their thumb. And so I called them to get some pointers on how to get through it, and it was nothing to it after that.
Well,
all right.
How much time do you think that bought you putting your foot in the right position as you were holding up his back?
How much time does it save me?
How much extra time will he stand there?
Oh, well,
I mean, like, if he's off balance, obviously it'll.
Man, that actually is a great question, because I see it a lot of times with young guys. They get under a horse and they're trying to get themselves comfortable, so they're over here trying to get themselves in the right spot.
So
now he's uncomfortable.
Obviously crooked.
And so, yeah, so he'll stand there for a minute, but then in a minute he's going to say, man, I don't like this. So he's going to go to moving, and then they're going to think it's him, and then they're going to be whooping him with the rasp, you know. But the thing is, if you'll get yourself in the right position and make him comfortable, he's going to be more apt to stand there longer if you get him in the right position. So that's a good question. And it does make a big difference. It makes a big difference in how you position yourself, how you position your body, and how you allow him to be in a comfortable position.
How do you stand? Do you stand a certain way to save your back?
I try not to bend over. Like when I bend over, I may bend over like this it's like anything, you use your legs. And so you're not going to see me. You're not going to see me like this a lot with a big arch in my back. I'm going to stand more with my back straight, like posture. You'll see me. If you see me bend over, I'll bend from my waist more than from my shoulders. And so I'll just try to stay up like this with my back a little straighter, and just like doing a squat.
So are there some days? I mean, does it have to be bad for your back?
Well,
is there just no way around it? Like, if
man,
you
shoe enough horses, your back's going to get tired. Your back's going to get. I mean, the thing that it's like anything, you have to really, you have to work at keeping your back in good shape. In other words, stretching. When your hamstrings get tight, and your hamstrings get where you can't touch your toes, then your back is going to have the bottom of your back's going to take the brunt of that. So, yeah, I think that. You shoe enough horses, your back's going to get accustomed to it. But if you shoe enough horses, you're also going to have days where your back is taxed. And I think that one thing that I've had to learn how to do over time is stretch a lot and drink more water.
Yeah.
I could work all day and never drink any water, and just because I just keep going. And but I think if you shoeing up horses, I don't care what they say, your back's gonna get tired.
I just didn't know if there's a way to posture yourself where it's not necessarily an inevitable back surgery.
No, I think there are, and I think it's just like anything. I think it's just like any athlete. Some are just more apt to be able to handle it than others, and it all depends on you and your body type, how you take care of your body, how you take care of your muscle structure, how you feed your body, and I think that's a big deal. I think if you get a soft core, your core gets real soft, then you're going to have a lot more trouble. That's with anything, whether it's shoeing horses, playing football, jiu-jitsu, boxing, roping, bulldogging. I mean, whatever. The softer your core is, the more trouble you're going to end up having with your back. And so I think but I do believe that body position, like us, we all use a foot stand that's about knee high. A lot of these guys that come to help us for the first time, they have a foot stand that's real low, so they're really bent over real low all the time. I don't know how low Koki's is, but it's pretty close to the same height as ours. It's a little, see how much shorter that is?
Yeah, but he was short.
Right, he was. However, even that, I think if you have a little more height on your foot stand, horses, they don't mind that height to a certain level, and I think body posture and way you position yourself under one is a big deal, and it also being able to get in there, get under them, and get out from under them, and not spending too much time underneath them.
Did everybody call him Koki back then? I know that's what Charlie called him.
A lot of people did. A lot of people called him Coke. A lot of people, I call him Coke. I call him Koki, and it just kind of depends on the situation, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just.
I remember hearing that for the first time when I was a kid. I was at we were at Amarillo, and I was like 7, and I heard him call him Koki, and I was so uncomfortable. I was like, oh, I don't like that, but it was just the first time I heard it. Now I don't mind it.
Yeah,
Just as a kid, you just. Yeah.
See, like right there, he's kind of wanting to pull his foot away, and he's straining against me a little bit. And it's probably, he may have a fly on him or something over there. See, he doesn't like that fly bothering him. And that's something that you have to pay attention to if you're shoeing horses every day. Is it him, or is there something else bothering him? Is there some other, this nail was a little high, so I'm just gonna use my puller to pull it down. Is it him, or is the fly bothering him, or is it the way that I'm handling him? So all of those things are things as a horseshoer or a horse person, you have to have an idea of what he's got going on. He's kind of not wanting to deal with that fly over there right now, but he finally kind of figured out that he's going to have to. Once again, just clean out underneath the nails.
How often do people have you just put shoes on the front?
You know, that's a good question, and there's a lot of times that I actually do. I do quite a few that I just do on the front, and it'll be horses that people are maybe a rein cow horse that they're just riding them in the arena, and they want a sliding plate on the back, and they're good enough footed that they don't necessarily need a shoe on the back on the front. And as long as you don't over trim them, they get along pretty good. And so that's something that you see. I don't see it quite as much. We do a lot of those mares at the ranch just on the front because some of them have different pathologies that they're dealing with, or they don't have the best feet, and they do that just to keep their foot protected. And so we do it. We do a lot of half shoes at the ranch, and that's just they bear more weight on their front end, and it's a lot easier to see soreness and lameness on the front. So we'll do them on the front and not the back. But most of the horses that we do are they're ranch horses or using horses or high-end performance horses, barrel horses, rope horses. And those horses are on different terrain all the time. They go to a rodeo over here, they got to go across a caliche parking lot, or then they go somewhere else and the ground's hard and the ground's soft. And so the shoe is designed to protect the foot when you have especially if you have a shoe's designed when you have a foot that barefooted wear exceeds growth. So if their foot's wearing more than it's growing, and their feet get short, they need something to protect their foot, and that's what horseshoes are for. Mm-hmm. But anyway, and that's pretty much the gist of it right there. But yeah, we do some on the back, we do some on the front. It kind of depends on the horse's job and what people want to do, how they want to do it, the lifestyle that the horse leads.
Can you explain, like, kind of getting it, just because we got one shot and the other one, like getting the horse stood up a little bit, like, do you mind?
Like standing him up?
Yeah, just, I mean, because right now you got an example of it right next to him.
Right.
So I don't know, what do you look for?
So you hear the term stand him up a whole lot. And what that means, what people are saying by that is they want to make his foot from looking like his heels are gone to where he's up on his toes. That's what we call stand him up. But really it's kind of a misconception because, like I said earlier, a horse's foot doesn't grow down, it grows forward. So a lot of those feet that are really forward and looks like their heels are trimmed too short or no heel, that's because their heel may be 1.5 inches long, but it's only a 1/2 inch tall because it's all run under and rolled forward. So their toe is really stretched out in front of them. So if you put that horse's foot back in those parameters that we talked about, looking at the widest point of his foot, the apex of his frog, where his coffin bone is, everything forward of that, there's a certain distance there that's distorted, and his foot needs to come back to a certain parameter. So when you put that horse's foot back into that parameter, it's going to pop his foot back up into a normal situation. Now there are some horses that pathologically are down in their heel or really low heel, and their toes are run forward, and they have what we call a broken back hoof pastern axis. And so those horses, we usually have to put some kind of a therapeutic on that elevates the heel to get their bony column back in alignment. So shoeing horses, there's about 3 things that there's about 3 ways to look at it. You have what we call the ideal situation is to get his foot and his bony column lined up, where this bone in the bottom of his foot, this bone coming out of his foot, and this bone in his ankle right here. This bone, there's another bone here and right here, where those all line up and they make a real straight line with one another, and about let's just say a 55-degree angle. That's the normal. That's what we're shooting for. Now then you'll have a horse that's foot may be over stood up in the case of a horse that's kind of clubby footed. So his foot's going to be real upright, his heel's going to be real long, and this point from at the coronary band right here will be what we call broken forward. So it's be like an arrow pointing that way. This one's going to be flat. And then you have a horse like you're talking about that, let's just say his heels are really long and his toes real long, and now his foot's like this, and these bones don't line up. This bone in the bottom of his foot is negative to the ground surface instead of positive like this one. And then that's where you got to back his toe up, move his heel back, and hopefully by just doing that and putting a shoe on it, it pops this bone back up into place like this. And if you get a horse like this, it's what we call broken back, and his bone in his foot is at a negative angle to the ground, then we might have to put something like a wedge or something to elevate that heel to get it back in the proper angle to where his bony column alignment is more what we call normal or ideal. So those are the 3 things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis that we're trying to get as close to that normal, ideal situation as possible.
55 degrees.
Well, I mean, that's a rule of thumb. It's not but you can see here, this horse has got a really good conformation. And if you were to look at this foot from there to his coronary band to his fetlock, that all just lines up really, really well. It's in a good angle. those 3 bones line up. And so he's not broken forward or broken back. He's right at the good state of equilibrium where he can function well. You're not far off, really. You're just, I would just make sure that's flat right there. Yeah, that's good. And flip your rasp around the other way. Put your handle over here and do that part right there. There you go. All right, pretty good. Not bad. Not bad, not bad. So I'm just doing this in the fire for all of those hot shooters out there to prove that I use my forge once a year when I come to DB's house. So what we do, in order to keep it rolling, while that shoe's getting hot, see, that's the thing about most of us cold bangers that shoe horses, by the numbers and stuff. With those particular shoes, I could already have it shaped up and ready to nail on while it's getting hot. But I can also continue to work on the horse while I'm letting it get hot. So that is a different, that's, while it's getting hot, I can do this foot and get it ready. So I'm not wasting time. And really, this horse has got some foot. You could trim it off with your nippers if you wanted. However, once you cut it off, it's really hard to put back on. And I know I'm going to have to flatten it back out. And no more foot than this horse has on him. There's really not a big reason for me to try to use my nippers. By the time I get my nippers out, I can use my rasp, flatten that foot out. And a lot of horses' back feet, you can tell the left hind from the right because this side is a little bit longer and this side's a little shorter. If you look at it, this is kind of a bigger, bolder outside. This is kind of a tighter, shorter inside. And that'd be what you'd see on a right hind. So when you're shaping your shoe or you're building a shoe from scratch, you take that into consideration on your measurements or on how you're shaping your shoe. So now that my shoe's hot, I forget I have this microphone on. Now that I got my shoe hot, this is going to be for the front. Like I said, I've got to get my toe to fit, and I know that toe's a little bit more narrow on that front. So I want to open in order to get my toe to fit, whether it's wide or narrow in a compromise pattern shoe or a factory made shoe, I've got to open my toe up so I can figure out if I want to narrow it up or widen it. So the anvil, the way that the anvil works, the center of the anvil is to flatten stuff. This side of the anvil helps bend it, and this side from the center back helps straighten it. So wherever I'm hitting my shoe on my anvil across the horn, I'm doing that with a purpose because I'm either straightening or bending or closing. So I get the shape in my shoe like I think his foot is that I kind of have mapped out in my brain. And I start to kind of put it together. I watch how each quadrant of my shoe starts to take place. And I know that here's his toe quarter. I know that's his heel quarter. And I know what that bend is sort of like back there. So I'm going to go ahead and get it bent a certain way. And if I wherever my shoe sets on my anvil right here, it's not going to bend from here back. It's going to bend from that point forward. So I stay out there.
Oh, dang.
I want to make sure I want to make sure I don't lose my toe in my shoe, because everything has to follow the toe. Now, I don't know how close I am, but we'll go check it. It's probably going to be, I'm going to have to come back to the anvil one more time, I can tell, because I kind of lost sight of. All right, since we're in France, Wire brush it out.
Or if I had a concrete pad for you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is old school, you know, back in the day. Kind of got to remember where you came from. Don't forget where you started. Now I'll take these hot fitting tongs and I'm going to set it there. I'm going to make sure it fits at the toe. I'll be dang, that's pretty close. So now, if I had it a little bit hotter, as it's burning, it's going to burn his foot onto the bottom of the shoe. Especially if we're on a concrete pad without all this mud. But anyway, hey, you know, beggars can't be choosers. When we're at Radiator Ranch, we do it as they do here. So I can look here on the bottom of my shoe and see where it burned his foot. So I can tell I need to bring this heel in a little bit. And see, that's where his foot is. So that's how much my shoe is too wide. So I can go back in there and I can tighten that up a little bit. And then I can recheck it and go back, nail it on. One thing that fitting shoes hot does is it really gets you get a good fit, like your shoe and your foot meet up really, really good together. That's one thing about fitting them hot. Now let me cool it off. Water. See, when it rains, you don't need a water bucket. You can just go out here, see this mud puddle? We'll go stick it in this mud puddle. Because if I catch it right now, it's going to be hot. So all good horseshoers, they cool them off out in the, it keeps it natural. Because, you know, shoeing horses, you want it to be natural. So I like cooling their shoes off in a natural environment. So when the shoe's on the ground, it's like their natural environment. That's what I love about it. Still kind of yeah, you know, when you don't have water, you know, Radiator Ranch, the radiator had a hole in it. So we'll check it. Hey,
Ready?
close enough for the girls I go with. All right. So a lot of times guys have trouble holding their shoe in place. So when I set it on there, I set my shoe on and I get it where I want it. So I might just hold it with my finger right here so it doesn't flop around. And as I go to put my nail in, as I'm putting my nail in this hole, the bottom part of my hand right here holds the toe of my shoe. I'll hold it with the back side of my hand. Then I'll put my nail in and I'll kind of get it started. And then I can kind of situate my shoe. I get my nail started and I'm holding my shoe down with the back part of my hand. And now I can take my hand and move it here so when I'm driving my nail, if he jerks, I don't hit my thumb. And then once I get that nail in there, I make sure my shoe fits where I want it. I always feel and double check. Now I go to the other side, get my nail started. Now I check it. Everything seems to line up and fit. Nail her on. Finish the game.
What happens if somebody ends up putting like a back on the front?
Oh, it happens all the time. I pull them off every day. No, that's a good question. And really, the horseshoes themselves are made in front and hind patterns for convenience and to make it easier. You can actually reshape a front to a hind, or you can reshape a hind to a front. So the biggest thing about that is knowing how to shape your shoe and put it in the right parameters. So, I mean,
It can be done.
we do see people that they'll take a shoe out of the box and nail it on and it doesn't fit, but they get away with it because they either don't trim their foot short enough, there's a lot of distortion, and so you can drive your nail in through that dead distortion. Like, we didn't clean this foot up at all. We just kind of went with it. And so, but I did set my shoe in a place where I felt like his foot is supposed to be. So when we do get through finishing and crimping, then most of his foot's going to be back in the right spot. And see, I always look at my foot down the center. That toenail crosses over, lines up through this heel. That one goes through this heel, and it all crosses right in the center of his foot. That's how I kind of know that I've got things in the right perspective. All right, 1 foot to go. Now, I can do this all day long. So, talking about...
Good, I got about 15 horses.
You what?
I said good because I got about 15 horses.
Shoot, man, we'll just have to come back a different day and bring the crew and get them done. Bring Baker next time.
You go to 4-6s once a week, go to the clinic once a week, you go to Radiator Ranch once a week.
Yeah, that's right.
Hit all the big places, you know.
Yeah, all the big ranches.
All the.
Would it be? Would it be interesting to measure out? You were talking about like with a pair of calipers, like how you're showing mapping the foot.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not trying to get in your way.
I think it's great because it's a good way to test yourself, prove a point. Clue. Let me see. So really, does the rubber meet the road? Okay, is what we're talking about. Does it actually work? So I love that. I love that idea. So what I'm gonna do is when I look at his foot. And these are some of the things that I've learned from guys like David Sear out in Vegas, from Mark Caldwell in England, Gene Ovenick, Jake Whitman, the stuff that came out that's in the books that were written in the late 1800s. So if you find the back of the foot, okay, the back of his frog, and you open your calipers up, okay, let's just say that's the true tip of his frog, that's the back of his foot. We agree we're pretty, just say, close them up just a little. That's probably going to be the true tip of his frog and the back of his foot, okay? Now then, let's tighten up our calipers. So if we've done it, if we've got him close, within 1/8 of an inch, this should equal from the center of his foot here to there. And this should equal from there to the back of his foot, which should equal from the coronary band right there to there. So this should equal this, should equal this. And if you can get a horse's foot that close on a normal basis, day in and day out, you're going to be among some of the best in the business. I mean, if you can get his foot that close, day in and day out, you're going to be right there among the elite. But it can be tricky, especially when you don't have. This horse got a really good foot. I mean, there's not a whole lot of to leave to guess. It's pretty straightforward, pretty cut and dry. One thing that's where the rubber meets the road. If you can take your calipers, you can go from the true tip of his frog, widest point of his frog. That's going to go from the widest point of his foot where the bars terminate into the sole. That's also what they call the bridge of his foot. If you run your knife or whatever down the center of that commissure, as it comes here, there's a big hump in the middle of his foot. At the top of that hump, that's the center of his foot. That's also where the bars terminate. That's also 1 inch behind the true tip of his frog. So if we can't find the true tip of his frog, but if we can find where that is, and we measure 1 inch, then that's going to be 1 inch forward. And then if you go from here, if you go 1 inch and these are rules of thumb, and I think they're pretty close within about, according to some of the research that Duckett, Ovenick, Mark Caldwell, some of those guys have done, you're going to find that within an eighth of an inch of difference is about all that you're going to have. So there's 1 3/4 from this where his bars terminate to the widest point of his foot. 1 3/4 of that forward of that, right there. If you were to drill a hole right through there, that's where the tip of his coffin bone is going to be. And when it comes to saying breakover, and it can be controversial because a lot of people, they get upside down about breakover, but they say 1/4 inch forward of that is where breakover occurs. And so if that's the case, you look at this horse's foot, it's in pretty good, it's really pretty balanced and in the proper place. And so another way, if you're building a shoe for this foot, say you were going to build a shoe for this horse, the widest point of his toe quarter is, let's just say right here, if you come to the widest point of his toe quarter, there to there, that's where his breakover is going to be. This is where that right there, from there to there, is the amount of stock width that you would use for this foot if you were going to build a shoe for it. The appropriate stock width is going to be measured from that. And then, so when you're building a shoe for that foot, I drew that on the ground a while ago in a box. When you're building a shoe and how most shoes are designed, if you got his foot in this box, and all of these parameters line up, like we say, this toe quarter to this heel, this toe quarter to this heel, the widest point of his foot, that's where your heel nail goes, that's where your middle nail goes, that's where your toenail goes, toenail, middle nail, heel nail. And that's so when you're building your foot, you're building it into that grid. When you're building your shoe, when you're shoeing your horse. So if you can get everything into those parameters.
Where does the 4th nail go?
It goes behind the widest point of the foot, man. That's where everybody wants the 4th nail. No, so that's a good point. I'm just kidding, because a lot of guys that shoe horses, they're really picky about putting a nail back behind the widest point of the foot. But I feel like if the wall's good and the foot's thick, you can drive a heel nail. But if you're building a shoe theoretically to those parameters, that's where you know your nails go. And if you want to put a 4th nail in, you'll just split them between that one and this one. So you'd put a nail there, a nail there, nail there, and that's where your heel nail would be at the widest point of the foot. So a lot of your factory-made shoes are a little bit further back than that, but for the most part, they're safe and effective, and they work really well. I know those boys that rope a bunch on her, so I just sent her down there and let them put the 1-2 cowboy on her for a couple of months, and I'm fixing to get her back.
Oh man, I bet she's gonna be good when you get her back.
Oh yeah, those kids, they're top notch, man.
Oh, man.
Of course, I've known them my whole life. Just from going to the horse sales and roping, and they went to school. Justin and Sid, they both went to school at Tech, and
Yeah.
Sid. Morris.
Ag teachers, you probably know no ag teaching days.
Yeah.
They're old family friends, and yeah. And Gary, give me this cap. I said, you know what, I'm going to support those
Heck yeah.
good times horse sales
Do
today.
you ever shoot for them anymore?
My brother does.
Yeah.
Baker, he goes and does their good horses,
Okay.
all their rodeo horses.
Yeah. I might have a little sorrel and white paint that somebody shoot because she had new iron on her, so I was like, I wondered.
Well, I don't know, Baker. There's no telling.
There's a lot of horses that go through there.
Man, we've done horses over the years for. You want to crimp them?
You bet.
We've done horses over the years. Let me get him over here. I'll hold him for you. Get him in the shade. I noticed.
You want to swap to the
I noticed I was sweating a little more than you.
hitching post?
So I'm gonna hold him myself. I'm gonna hold him. I'm gonna make sure that.
Blane, did you already explain when I was before I got here about not trimming the frog on these ones, or?
Now, trimming the frog will actually slough or exfoliate itself about once a year. But it will grow through the shoeing cycle. And you can trim the frog. It's just like the rest of the foot. You just have to try to leave it in as natural a state as you can. Trim off the part that's exfoliating or trying to come off on its own, and just try to be as mindful of the horse's foot as you can, and the horse when you're doing it. And so you can trim the frog if it's necessary.
Clean it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much do I leave, or do I get it flat against the?
Yeah, just cut them off. a good clinch is going to be, or a good crimp. Man, I need to get my vocabulary right. A good crimp is going to be about the width of the nail is the same height as it is wide. That's about, if you've got a nail that's sticking out the same length sticking out as it is wide, that's pretty much ideal. Then you take your rasp, you got to clean out from underneath it. You got to remember the steps.
Oh, yeah.
Did you not take notes? You got to take notes. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5.
Yeah, I really like that ransom of those too.
Oh my, those kids, man.
Oh,
Ryder and Ransom, man, those kids.
They're good kids.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jackson too. They're all good. Cowboy.
That guy demands respect anymore from you. For a young kid, man, he's a,
Yep.
what a respectful group of kids, man. But I mean, if you've been around their dads, it's probably because they got good mothers, really.
Yeah.
You know.
you put your knee up against it when it's on this.
I do. I just try to keep it. Don't be afraid to squeeze them.
So squeeze it, just don't pull
Squeeze
it.
it with your man hands, not your purse. There you go.
You just don't pull it down.
Just squeeze them together, and then once you get them to the bottom, mash them in. You're not going to hurt them. There you go. Now you're talking. Clean all that off. We can see what we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. We could have cleaned some of this up beforehand, but I mean with our rasp. But you know, there's a lot of different ways to do it. A lot of times I'll shape the feet up on the top before I put the shoe on. But no more distortion and stuff that was in that foot. And we're out here at Radiator Ranch. We don't want to overdress his foot. And, you know, this is Cowboy 101 today, baby. All right, and go from one side to the other. So start on one side of his foot and just work your way around. There you go.
How often do you get a new rasp?
Trying to decide. All dull rasps work the same. So I like to use a sharp rasp from Mustad, Heller. One of those rasps, something that's good, that's sharp, stay sharp. And I probably can go through, I don't know, probably 20 or 30 horses before I change. But when I start really having to fight my rasp, then I'll switch. But I don't finish much anymore, so most of the stuff I do is on the bottom. And when you trim their foot good and flat on the bottom, you don't really have to use your rasp a lot, so rasp lasts me a little bit longer. But my finish guys, I just let them sweat it out a little while. And then they finally like, man, I need to get a new rasp. I'm like, here's my old one, let me have yours. I'll switch them out. But now you know, it a lot of it depends on the horses we do too. You know, I want to, depends on what kind of finish I want to put on, how clean I want to make them. So,
Where do I put the hoof stand for this back foot?
okay, the way these hoof stands are designed, hang on.
Yeah.
So the way this hoof stand is designed, it's a tripod top stand. So, and this being the peak of it, the ones that I'm building now are just flat. And they have a ball on the top, so they can be kind of omnidirectional. But the way these work well is where that leg is facing toward the line of travel with the horse. So that leg is going to be in line with his front and hind leg. So that way, when I put my foot on there, when I put his foot on there, if he rocks it one way or another, it's stabilized. It pretty much stays in place. If you put it like this, he's
Yes,
able
sir.
to turn it. So I want to make sure that leg is in line with travel of the horse. And then as I put his foot up on the stand, that replaces kind of the weight borne upon it's going to hold it steady there. And it can only rock side to side. And then I can put one foot here and stabilizes it pretty well. If I turn it like this, and I take if he puts back, it falls over a lot easier. And so I always put that one of the feet in a line of the direction of travel, and then it's pretty stable. Now I can put one foot right here.
So when you're working on the back, you'll stand to, you
So when I'm
put a
working
knee
on the
behind
back,
it still?
One thing that you have to, like, Buckethead's pretty good. He's a pretty good patient, but so I don't mind putting my foot here. But I'm always feeling of what the horse is doing. So you don't want to get your knee too far behind him here, because if he does kick his foot off the stand and get you in the leg, it can wreck your knee. So what I'll do is I'll kind of brace it up against the side of his foot here, so in case he does, I can get away from him. And so I'll just kind of put my knee against his back of his foot, and I can feel him. Of course, he wants to stand still. He doesn't want to do anything detrimental, so he stands good. And then I'll just kind of keep my knee up under that heel of that shoe right there. And he's going to stand good, and I can feel him. He's relaxed. As long as he's relaxed, I can pretty much kind of go on with it. Just open them up, close them together, crimp those nails over. And then when I'm finishing, I'll take my rasp and I'll start on the inside with the flat part of my rasp. I'll touch the top of my nails just enough to get the burr off of them. And see, like right there, he's wanting to pull back. I'll just let him pull it back, and I'll kind of get his foot on the top of my leg so I can get away from him if I need to. And I'll just slip it back up there, and I'll kind of put my knee up against that stand. When I get to the front, I may use the rough side of my rasp a little bit, and I just kind of make it flow all the way from the top to the bottom to bring that hoof distortion back to the shoe. And then I'll take the edge of my rasp and I'll do what we call hem it. I'll hem the edge of that shoe up. Because I want like I said, I want my horse's foot on top of my shoe. I don't want my shoe underneath his foot. That way it lets his foot move and breathe and be able to, as it grows out, it won't grow over the top of my shoe. It'll grow out and my shoe will still be matching his foot as it gets longer. It doesn't bind their foot up. And there's a lot of things you can do to make this foot really pretty. You know, you can we put some polish on a lot of them. We buff them up, make them get all the rasp marks out.
What's that? What is it on the hoof that is? What's that first layer called?
Periopal.
Periopal.
Yeah, it's kind of a protective covering.
And you don't need to take. Do you try not to take it off like every time?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of. You can ask a lot of people about that, and people have different opinions. But most of the time, once you shoot and you rasp on their foot a little bit, it's always continuing to grow, and the oils and the moisture in their foot continues to replenish that. So, you know, within 24 or 48 hours, it's going to be replenished, and it's going to be, the horse's foot's pretty impermeable, really. Mm-hmm. And so you can put some stuff on it to kind of seal that back off to kind of protect it. But you can over-rasp it, you can overdo it, but, you know, you also have to get their foot back in the right perspective, too, and in the right parameters. So, you know, you gotta figure out what you're going to gain the most and lose the least. And sometimes you have to rasp on their foot to get it back in the right spot until you come back and redo it again the next time. And you can overdo it for sure, but I haven't really seen horses ever have any kind of detrimental effects by rasping as little as we have on this horse's foot. I've never seen it cripple one or cause trouble or any kind of problems. And there's a lot of things you can do to make it a lot prettier and a lot cleaner. And you know, we do that. We're just kind of running through today. And, you know, it may not look like a show job on the top, but for the most part, everything's in the right spot. The shoes are in the right place. The nails are in the right place. And he's going to wear them until he jerks them off and have to put them on again. So,
thanks for watching this second episode of How to Shoe a Horse with one of the Chapman brothers. This time it's Blane, old son.
That's right.
What do you got for us closing it out?
Party on, Wayne.
Party on, Wayne. On to the next one.
Thanks. On to the next one.